The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Hi everyone, welcome to Art Corner. Today I am so honored and so humbled to be talking with this gentleman seated next to me. He probably needs no introduction to any of you who have lived in Fall River. However, it is my joy to welcome David Mello to Art Corner. I am so honored to have you here.
I was wondering who you were talking about there. This is just me. This is just me.
Just you. But just you. You have been, tell me, I'm sure that everybody knows who you are. However, for those in case they don't know, tell me a little bit about you. You're a lifelong city
resident. Lived here all my life. Worked here all my life. Went to school here. I love the city. I love the people here. I love the community. And I've had the honor for the past 40 years now to be involved with the Fall River Public Library.
No kidding. Where most
of that time I've been the children's librarian. A great job. I love what I do. Love the people I work with. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Awesome.
And it's fed a lot of what I do, a lot of the artwork I do.
Awesome. So let's talk about your artwork, because I know that you are a spoken word person. You've done a lot of readings, and especially I know that people have had you do lots of things with Lizzie Borden and Edgar Allan Poe, all of those, and reading at various different events around the city. This is where my personal heart is with the artwork that you've done. I've seen your work. I have been honored to be part of a show that you did. The first show I ever did at the Art Association was with you and another gentleman. But I want to talk about your artwork. What is your inspiration?
Well, my inspiration is very much what you just mentioned, storytelling. Ever since I was a child, before I even started as a librarian, I always liked things that had a story to them, that would speak to you, whether it would be in artwork or tales or books, but items that really resonated and had something to say. And I was always receptive to that type of imagery, that type of storytelling, and it just kind of grew into my work. And for the past number of years, the paintings, the sculptures I do, that's what I want people to see when they look at the pieces. I want the pieces, as all artists, to speak with them.
Right.
Speak with the viewer. Tell them a little bit of a story, even if they don't know what the story is.
Right.
And that's what I like. I like to give a little bit of a story, a little bit of a hint of something that's taking place, something, whether it's kind of magical or in a fantasy realm, and then let the viewer complete the story for themselves. Just give them a hint of a narrative, but leave it incomplete.
Right.
And I find when I speak to people that look at my art, and in general, art of this nature, it gets them more involved. They become a participant
I think
in
that's
the artwork.
I think that's important because for me, art is very personal.
Yes.
You know, you have it. Not everybody's going to like the same things. Not everybody's going to appreciate the art in the same way. But if your art tells a story, I agree with you. It draws people in, and it gives that person a personal connection with that piece of art.
They're no longer just a viewer, but they're participating in the narrative of the painting or whatever piece it is. Yeah.
So how did you start? Were you always fascinated with the sculpture, or did you paint, or do you draw?
I think I started out drawing. I always drew.
Okay.
I'm one of these guys who were never interested in sports. never really, I played outside, sure, but when I was younger, it was always art. I was always drawn to art. And I think a lot of that was, I have many fond memories of my dad, who liked painting. He was not a professional artist, but he liked drawing. He liked painting whenever he could. He was a very talented man, could make furniture, cabinets, and I always liked to watch him when he did his wood carving. He loved wood carving birds. And I think that's where my interest in sculpture came from.
Okay.
I have fond memories of him being in the basement at his workbench and carving seagulls and ducks. He loved ducks, and I would watch. And eventually, there was a number of years I started wood carving myself.
No kidding.
I did that for many years. I became very interested in Native American art and in sculpture and drawings and Kachina dolls, and just fascinated with it for a number of years. And unfortunately there won't be any of those samples in the show, though. I'm thinking of it now, but that was a period of my life that I just threw myself into it, and then it eventually evolved into sculpture, working with clay and ceramic, and
now, is your clay? So, let's talk about your clay, because I am fascinated with your mask making.
Yes, I love
find
making
that
masks. Yeah.
Just that speaks so many. I mean, there is so much that speaks to. I am obviously a fan of dragons. They are some of my very favorite pieces. So tell me about your clay. Are you air drying? Are you firing in a kiln? Or
these are fired.
Okay.
It's fired at Cone 04. It's grayware, and I don't. Each piece is sculpted by hand. Each piece is an original piece. There are some items that I use molds for. You'll see some. It's obvious, the ones in the shows. Those they're more commercial.
Okay.
They're cheaper to make, and for people who want to own a unique piece, it's more affordable. But the larger pieces are all handmade. I design each one. They're sketched out. I go along with the sketch I like, and then the sculpting begins. I'll complete a piece. Some pieces I can complete in about 2 to 3 days, the larger pieces. And then it's the firing process. And then even after that, there is some sculpting involved. The sanding down, I carve into the ceramic as well. And then they're painted, and it's not traditional the way I paint each piece. I use acrylics paints on them. They're not glazes. They're not fired again a second time or a third time. They're acrylic colors because I really go for a certain look.
Right.
And I guess I'm just not skilled enough with glazes and things, but I find them a little bit limiting. But this way I can color them the exact way I want, put as much detail in them. Sometimes I put in a little bit of gold leaf. I love working with gold leaf.
Yes.
As well, just for little highlights. And that's how the pieces are done, by and large.
Are they, for the most part, are they like one-offs, individuals? Or you're not like doing like 1 of 10 pieces? No,
each one is completely individual.
Beautiful.
I mean, ultimately, the project I'm working on now is it's going to be about 40 dragons, as I mentioned earlier. Big task. I honestly don't know how many I have already. I think it's between 18 and 20.
Wow.
Because I have a small studio. I have a small house. I sculpt each piece. I admire it for a few days, and then I wrap it up and I put it away until I have a show.
There you go.
It's sad in a way,
right.
But I think I'm up to either 18 or 20 now. But eventually it will be 40.
Wow.
And
so talk to me
each
about
piece
that.
is completely different. They're all dragons.
Okay.
And they're inspired from dragons from around the world, from world mythology, from folklore, some from literature. As a matter of fact, I just completed sculpting Smog from the Hobbit.
No
Yes,
kidding.
so he's got to be painted yet. He's my largest one to date.
No kidding.
But you'll have wyverns from Europe. You'll have the serpent Quetzalcoatl from Mexico.
Yeah, yes.
I have a version of him. I have a manticore from Persia. Some are lesser known creatures, but they're all part of that realm. And I've even thrown in my favorite so far. It's not technically a dragon, but we squeezed him in. I've always wanted to do a griffin.
Oh,
so
love
I've got
it.
a griffin in full wing spread, and And
Absolutely,
even I've done a phoenix too.
Oh,
so
those are
I
fabulous.
incorporated, snuck in a couple of my favorite mythological creatures. So they're solely not just dragons.
So I think it's interesting that the little bit of research I've done on dragons, it seems like every culture has some sort of a lizard with a tail that might breathe fire, have wings or not wings, have horns, not horns.
Yes,
it feels like
it's an archetype that you
yes.
see throughout different countries, throughout different religions.
Yes.
You know, we all have our versions of them, and all of them, they're similar, but many of them have such unique qualities. Like the Chinese dragon, for instance, it's a dragon, it flies in the air, but there are no wings to the Chinese dragon.
Right.
And it's for ages, it's been a symbol of power and royalty. As a matter of fact, there are, I believe, 3 different types of Chinese dragon: your 3-toed, your 4-toed, and your 5-toed dragon. And back in history, only the emperor could wear a 5-toed dragon. Otherwise, it was, on their embroidery, or otherwise it was punishable probably by death. So dragons are held in high esteem.
I just think it's fabulous, and I know that everybody now's gone through the whole Game of Thrones thing.
Oh yes,
very,
dragons are more popular than ever.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
But they've always been with us.
Right. Right.
They've always been with us.
I find it seems like when it pops into like the more mainstream culture, everybody's sort of, oh good, now we've got dragons.
Yeah.
They've been around forever.
They've been around
a long time.
Yeah.
I remember one of the things, my father had a beautiful jacket that he had embroidered when he was in the military. It was over in Morocco. There was a dragon on the back of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was always in my family. So I just find that tremendously fascinating.
Yeah, and as you say, you literally see them everywhere. I just noticed one at Christmas time, visiting the Historical Society. They have a wonderful gift shop there,
right.
And walking the path to the Historical Society, one of those beautiful outdoor urns caught my eye, and sure enough, I looked at the handles, and there are the most beautiful ornate dragons with wingspan and everything. They really inspired me. I'm going to be doing those, as a matter of fact. Yes.
Beautiful.
And it's like, if you keep your eyes open, they're around us everywhere.
They're everywhere. They are everywhere.
Supposedly they never existed, but they're with us every day.
Everybody's got a version of it, and I think I think that can be a thing to draw us all together.
Yes, right. Yes.
That could be something that brings everybody together. We're a little bit fractured right now, but if we all, acknowledge we each have some dragons in our world.
Exactly.
I think they're they don't always have to breathe fire.
And they don't always have to be mean, no.
Right, exactly.
There are some nice dragons out there in stories, especially in children's stories.
Exactly.
So,
Tell me about this piece that you have here, the dragon. I am looking at her. It looks like a girl, could be a boy.
It could be a girl, could be a boy, yeah. And it's part of a series of I think there's like 15 of them in the series, and this is the first time they'll be displayed. I call them miniature mythological animals, and mini myths, and so they'll be displayed at the Historical Society for the first time. And this one is, of course, a very traditional European-looking dragon. I gave him 3 horns. He's got his fins. He's got his pointy tail, and he doesn't look all that ferocious.
Not at all.
He looks
wonderful.
Very well-fed and docile.
Very happy.
But there are some other ones that are not so. There's a wyvern, which is a 2-legged dragon. I have the manticore, which always fascinated me, from Persian mythology. The face of a man, triple rows of teeth.
That's right.
And no wall could contain him. He could leap over anything. And what always fascinated me, he would hide in the woods late at night, and to passerbys going down a darkened lane, he would sing out to them in a beautiful woman's voice and entice them into the woods where he would later devour them. Now, what wonderful, what creature could compare with that? I mean, that's wonderful.
I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, so they're just wonderful stories connected to these wonderful creatures.
I think it's just fabulous. There are, tell me some more about your masks, because those also have fascinated me. And I'll be honest with you, the little kids in our art classes are talking about masks. They were inspired by the piece of poster, good grief. The poster that we made for your show.
Oh.
We pulled one of the masks that you had.
Yes.
And the kids were just fascinated. They all know.
That will be in the show.
They
that
all
particular
know
piece.
you.
Yeah.
They know who you are, and they're just waiting to see the show because they're doing a whole series. We're doing a whole series with them on masks.
Oh, nice.
And making their own. They're going to try to make their own with their faces. You know, we're going to try to get them to be still enough that we can do a little plaster of Paris on the face
yeah,
and stuff like
fun.
that.
Yep.
And then we have a whole bunch of other ones that we've purchased that they can play with. We have clay that they might be able to create with, and you've inspired them to do that just with that one little image that we have.
I'd like to hear that.
But I am so pleased that they found that would be something they'd like to do. So tell me, are you, when you're doing your masks, are you looking at, again, different cultures when you do them, or are these coming?
Sometimes I sketch virtually every single day, okay? Every single day I virtually sketch, sitting there on my sofa just watching TV or by myself. So I'm always drawing, and faces always fascinate me. And tied in with just it must come from my youth, my fascination with Halloween, as many people were.
Yes, yes.
And many times I did not like to buy store masks. Even as a child, I liked to make my own. So it just stayed with me. And then, of course, I've been involved in theater for many years.
Right.
Here at Bristol Community College, when Ryland Brenner was here with the Trinity Theater Rep Company, Little Theater, and I've made numerous masks for both companies. You know, so it's always I've always been fascinated, especially when I was doing a lot of work here at the college, watching the students perform a particular piece, and then when the masks were brought into it, watching the performances again, complete transformation. It doesn't, there's that whole notion that masks disguise, that masks hide things. If you're robbing a bank, yes, I guess, but to an actor, I think using a mask, learning to use it and work with it, it brings out so much more of that person's personality, of that person's inner thoughts, of emotions. It was always fascinating being involved in those shows. So that aspect of masks always fascinated me, and just the long history. And again, it's one of those things that we were talking about earlier, like dragons. Every single culture, dating back to almost the earliest periods, there was some type of disguise going on for the face, to become a part of the spirit world or to become a part of nature. They transform themselves to make this connection. And this is still with us today.
Absolutely.
Whether we act or whether we have many religious ceremonies or religious traditions that are carried out in many countries, masks are always brought out to remind us of these simpler times, of these ancient times, and these ancient traditions that are still with us.
Exactly.
So masks are ever so powerful. And they've influenced, as you know, many artists throughout the years, like Pablo Picasso. You see in his work, Salvador Dali, Goya. It's just had such a strong
Absolutely.
influence on so many creative people, and in performances and dance and theater.
And you always have them. Yeah. I know that. I mean, kids think about Mardi Gras. Everybody wears a mask at Mardi Gras. You have your parties. There are lots of like. I have some beautiful antique masks that came from Italy that people would wear during like waltz, like that. You'd come in and you had ladies had their little clutch bag, and they also had their little mask, and they would walk around, and it hid part of their face, and then the big reveal when they found either their husband or their partner or whatever, or and it's always been that part of that. I mean, the students at the Art Association are fascinated also with the actual painting of the face and the different traditions that go there. They're very fascinated with the Maori folks in Australia, New Zealand, and they're just, we keep telling them it's been around forever.
We can't even get into the psychological aspects of it here, but it's all that part of being more than what we are. To tie in with whatever mystic forces are out there, to help us become a part of that realm, to make that connection, you know.
Exactly.
And the whole concept of it is just magical, and it's wonderful, and it's storytelling. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I think that how we try to help our youngest students along is tell me your story. Tell me, our teacher encourages them, tell the story. Tell that story when you're creating, whatever it is that you're creating, because you want somebody to understand your vision.
Yeah.
And just tell the story. Give them a little bit, tell that story.
Yeah.
And I think that that's helped a lot of them sort of come out of their shells a little bit, put all of that fear of being right and, oh, I have to do this correctly.
Yeah.
There's a freedom that comes with the storytelling.
And it's
part.
very different from sitting down and typing out your story or even writing it down.
Right.
You're bringing out so much more of yourself. If you're working with paint or if you're working with clay, there's much more of that physical contact. And I think it's a different thought process that's involved instead of writing something down or even telling your story. You know?
Exactly. And I've always encouraged them, and I know all of us at the association have been encouraging the students to come up with a name for it. Don't it doesn't have to be long. It could just be one word. And that gives somebody a jumping off point. If you're not sure where you're going with your piece of art, just put one little word on it and then let somebody else do something.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about art too. Sometimes you're just so drawn to make an image. You know, it's happened to me many times where you're putting your thoughts and emotions into a piece, and it's like sometimes a piece dictates itself.
Absolutely.
And you yourself don't know what you did until much later. Your work reveals itself to you eventually and tells you what it is. You're not telling it, but it tells you, and that happens a lot.
It's a freeing kind of a thing, and I think I work with my hands too. I do a lot of mixed media, but I always have to work with my hands. That tactile part of it.
Right.
I feel the energy from the piece gets me going in a different direction, maybe, or I put it aside and I'm not feeling that right now. But I think that whole, and in my brain, I've got this whole little story that's going on. Well, I kind of like that. That works. Yeah. And look at that. I think that's a little piece of this. And I think trying to get out of the let's sit behind the computer all day. Let's do this all day long. I mean, I'm an accountant, so let's do the 1 + 1 = 2 all day long. But I want 5. I want 2. I want something to make 5.
Yeah.
But I think that being an artist and you being a storyteller and being all of those things, I believe, based on what I've seen before, it has come through in your art in ways that I think it draws people in. People want to stand and look at your artwork, and then they have a feeling there's a feeling, whether, I always say, whether they like it or they don't, you've got a feeling. You've asked them to have a feeling.
And that's what I like. And it's perfectly all right if you don't like the artwork, you know. But because everyone is different, and a lot of my pieces, I admit, they're very unusual.
Tell me about this one, by the way, while we're here doing this, because we've seen the baby.
But it's the response, you know. It's just I've had people say, I don't know what it is I like about that piece, but I like it. And I had a person in my last show at the Narrow Center who bought a piece just for that one reason. I liked it. I don't know why, but he came back a second time before the show ended, and he purchased the piece, and that's the best compliment. Right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell me about this, because I think this is fabulous too. This is fascinating.
Now I left painting for a number of years, and I was concentrating just on masks.
Okay.
From many years, and about 6 years ago, I got back into painting, and I just fell back in love with it again. Nice. I miss doing it. I have a very small studio, okay? Literally right now, it's like walking in a minefield, getting ready for the show, pulling stuff out of closets, and it's very tiny. So my work is small, too. Right. But this particular painting, and again, it was a drawing, a sketch that just evolved and evolved and evolved, and eventually told me what it wanted it to be.
Amazing.
It's named The Hermit's Apartment.
No.
Okay. That's what it is named.
No kidding.
And the name came eventually afterwards, after painting it and looking at it and spending time with it. But it's just one of the, like myself, I'm sure you and many people just want to sometimes just get away and be alone.
Right.
And you might say to yourself, oh, I could, and when you're at those times, I could be alone for an eternity, you know? And just with my thoughts and have the time to do the things I want to do, and just be not bothered and just pursue your own interests. And that's kind of what he is doing here. He's found, if you can see a perch somewhere way up on a hill.
Yes.
It's only achieved by a ladder that he can climb. And he's by himself. He's at peace. His hands are clasped. He could be praying. I'm not certain. And he's got food. He's got drink, and he's got a reminder, that skull there, that reminds him that you're only here for so long.
Right.
You know, our mortality is limited, and if going away and finding yourself is what you want to do, you should find that time to do it, or whatever it is you want to pursue, you know? And that's his little reminder. But there's always that bird.
There's hope in the background?
It could be. I don't know. I'm always perplexed by he almost did not make it in that picture. I erased him. I put him back in. And I finally determined that he was back, that's where he belonged, was the bird. That we're never really truly alone, maybe. There's always some aspect in our lives that will follow us, or something that we need to take care of, that we cannot completely ignore everyone, you know? But I liked it. I just, this is a piece I fell in love with, and it's one of the pieces I've decided not to sell, and it's just going to be with me.
Awesome. I think it's amazing. I think that, and I have seen some of your work in this form too. For me, there's always an emotion or a feeling, something that I take inside every time I see a piece of your work, no matter what it is. And I think that there is not. I think that's what every artist would like for somebody to take away from this.
Oh no, that's.
Yeah. And I believe that strongly, but I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am to bring all of the fruits of your wondrous labor to the Art Association.
I appreciate it.
We are just. We are over the moon. I can't even tell you. There are people who keep responding to the postings on Facebook, more than I've seen in a long time.
Oh, wonderful!
And
I'm delighted to hear that.
Honored that you are coming to be part of this.
The pleasure is mine. You know, it's a beautiful building. What a beautiful Victorian home, and the work just looks lovely in there.
It's really
just
does.
Wonderful, and so it's an absolute pleasure. Believe me.
I think what makes that unique, our building unique, is people can see the artwork in a home, as opposed to a big white wall, where you have to sort of envision it, or you get some sort of AI thing going. Oh, well, here's what it would look like with this. Yeah. But I know this isn't your first time here, but I am grateful that you said yes. I am honored that your show is here, and it will be opening this weekend, Saturday evening 5 to 8, Sunday afternoon 1 to 4, and it will be on display for the whole month of April. Please, everyone, come by and see this. If you want to meet the artist himself, I can guarantee he'll be here for opening,
and for Sunday
and
too.
then we'll see what we, if there's something that somebody would like to have, I can.
Or if you just want to talk about my. I love talking about my work.
Yes.
I love talking about it. I don't display all that much, you know, and so when it's an opportunity, when I'm offered the opportunity to display, I jump at it.
Awesome.
Because I like to share it with people, and no one has to buy a thing. I just like to talk about the work.
It's wonderful. And
if they have questions, feel free to ask.
It's wonderful. Well, I am so happy that we did this today.
I'm delighted.
I am
Thank
just, like I said, big fan. Always will be a big fan. And come and meet. If you haven't met David, please come and meet him. If you have, please come back and say hi, and see what kind of beautiful work he's done. If you're a dragon fan, this would be your opportunity, kids. This would be your opportunity, but stand in line behind me.
There'll be a few of the dragons, a couple of them.
Stand in line behind me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, my pleasure.
I appreciate it.
My pleasure.